Up next on Smart 24 TV.
Smart 24, driving business.
Hello there. Safaricom has lost 20% in just 1 week. Could they recover? KCB Group is currently registering one of their biggest profits ever in their financial year 2022. A very warm welcome to the program and good morning to you wherever you're watching us from. This is Smart 24 TV and we drive your business. My name is Anthony Sebale and I am your host. And bringing you this show is none other than Altex East Africa. With Altex East Africa, you can buy bonds across East Africa at the biggest rates with no hassle. And that's simply by dialing *292#. And when you follow the prompts, you will be able to register. You will be able to actually get to learn more about the products if you want to, and get to transact off the biggest treasury bond markets here in East Africa, in Kenya, in Uganda, as well as Tanzania. Now, what Altex is doing and why we are calling it new, it is the first company to be able to directly get to integrate mobile money into the treasury bond trading, and this is through now the USSD code *292#. To experience the magic at Altex East Africa, open your phone and dial *292#, and we say you will do something absolutely new. Thank you so much once again for joining us today. It is a Wednesday, the 22nd day of March, and we are pretty excited. I hope you are as well, to get you through what was happening yesterday and what's happening so far on the markets as they unfold on the third day of trading. Now, Uganda Securities Exchange on Tuesday had at least 3 equities that participated in the trading that saw the day end, with at least 3 gainers and 4 bottom losers, in a market that actually saw the all-share index close at a plummeting of over 31.72 points, declining to at least 1,090 points on Tuesday closing. Now, Nation Media Group came up as the top gainer from the gainers list on the Uganda Securities Exchange, with a total gain of 3.07%. and at a closing price of 420.04 Ugandan shillings. Nation Media Group has maintained a top performance over the last couple of days. However, there hasn't been any single activity that has been put up by the stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. On the gainers list, we also had East African Breweries Limited at a 1.08%. And this was an appreciation to a price of at least 4,905.29 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments as well rallied the market with a 0.12% appreciation in price, up to a price of 258.93 Ugandan shillings. On the side, we have 4 stocks, with Jubilee Holdings Limited continuing to register the poorest performance after losing at least 8.28%, down to 4,358.66 Ugandan shillings. Now, the Equity Bank Limited stock as well, which is the most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange, shed off at least 5.08% from the shareholders' value, down to a price of 1,097 Ugandan shillings. And when you look at MTN Uganda, the stock continued to wobble and losing at least 1.46% after participating in the day's trading, closing at a price of 172.44 Ugandan shillings. Now, MTN Uganda stock on Monday actually gained some bit of value after a couple of days of losing, and this was from about 171 to around 175 Ugandan shillings. Well, that gain did not last. The stock lost on Tuesday after the day's trading ended with a loss of 2.56 Ugandan shillings off the second most traded on stocks price, down to a 172.44 Ugandan shillings per share, accruing about 1.44% of the entire value that the shareholder might have to lose. Now, the market capitalization also dropped from 3.9 to 3.82 trillion Ugandan shillings, still maintaining the stock in the third position as far as market capitalization is concerned, and with a total representation of 19.86% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, the volume was at least about 8,677 shares that were traded on MTN on Tuesday, accruing at least a 1.5 million shillings turnover. The current shares outstanding, however, for MTN are over 22.4 billion shares that are currently floating out there amongst the shareholders. Now, MTN's recent performance is quite worrying after the company not only dropped in terms of the daily performance, but a weekly performance with a 1.46% that was traded off the stock price. MTN Uganda also in the past 4 weeks has closely lost 3.66%, and in 4 months over 4.2%, which is a continuous trend of losses for the stock. However, the good news is MTN Uganda continues to be the second most traded on stock at the Uganda Securities Exchange over the past 3 months. That is from the 14th of December to the 21st of March. Within this period, we are looking at a total volume of close to 20.5 million shares that have been traded, valued at 3.7 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, MTN Uganda came out just a few weeks ago to announce that their pre-tax profit was up by 20% in 2022, comparing those figures with the 2021 figures, which was something probably we hoped could increase the hype amongst investors and make the stock probably more attractive. Well, that is not quite evident as per the current performances from the Uganda Stock Exchange on MTN Uganda. But let's watch the space as the week, of course, winds down, and we get to see more and more earnings being unfolded, especially the financial institutions, like we're going to see later on in the show. Away from MTN Uganda, we did have Kenya Airways as well drop off at least 0.10% and down to a price of 110.19 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, amongst other participants besides MTN was Stanbic Bank Uganda, who rallied the market with at least a total volume of 25,000 shares, and Womeme with a record volume of 400 shares that was traded on the Uganda Securities Exchange on Tuesday. Those were some of the big participants in the markets here at the Uganda Securities Exchange. Of course, in just a few days, actually to be specific, tomorrow, we shall be witnessing the annual general meeting of one of the financial institutions, the prominent financial institutions that is listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And this is none other than Bank of Baroda Uganda. Yes, absolutely. Bank of Baroda Uganda will be actually getting to discuss with their shareholders on the way forward on what is going to be one of the very biggest rights issues on the Uganda Securities Exchange, after confirming that they will be holding their annual general meeting on the 23rd of March, which is tomorrow, Thursday morning. And you can, of course, if you're a shareholder, you can go to their website and kindly check out the invitation there. You can fill a proxy form, which you can actually be able to send someone to attend on your behalf if at all you need to. And you can as well attend. Probably they'll be having online sessions as well. Well, what does this mean for Bank of Baroda? Remember, Bank of Baroda is a stock that is one of still the top trading stocks on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and currently has one of also the biggest market capitalizations on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, apparently, this is going to be a discussion between shareholders on whether or not to issue the rights issue there from the company that is seeking to increase their paid capital. Now, the shareholders of the bank are expected to vote on the rights offer that's meant to raise the lender's capital base and also be on the right side of the financial regulations that have been imposed in the last 3 months. Now, Anne Tumwesi Jiambonye, who is Bank of Baroda's company secretary, in a notice to shareholders, mentioned that the lender has opted to float at least 15 million bonus issues, that is bonus shares, and this is in a rights offer to raise at least 150 million Ugandan shillings, approximately $39,900 US, at a ratio of 1 to 5. That is pricing. In terms of pricing, it's going to be a ratio of 1 to 5. The proposed cash infusion is subject to shareholders' approval during their annual general meeting on Thursday. The move comes just 3 months after Uganda's finance minister, Honorable Matia Kasaija, signed a statutory instrument increasing the minimum capital requirement for banks by over 500%, from at least $6.67 million US to over $40 million US. That's a huge jump there that the banks actually have to catch up with, and Bank of Baroda is already making steps towards this through the capital market. Now, the idea, according to Bank of Uganda, is to prevent commercial banks from falling off the cliff when, of course, hit by economic troubles, and especially to prevent and protect the assets of the investors and clients from the free fall. Now, according to new rules, regulated microfinanciers' paid up capital also increased to 6.6 million from over 267,336 US dollars. That is quite also significant change there. The new capital requirement has thrown a spanner in Uganda's banking sector, and the industry has reported one exit after this adjustment in the requirements, and that is none other than Afriland First Bank last year after 16 months of operation in the market. Now, when you look at the regional convergence in Uganda, there was a revision of this paid up capital requirements in 2010, and then later on, just last year, 2022, we had another one. In 2010, it was mainly focusing on the credit institutions as well as the deposit-taking institutions, and these were revised in 2004 and 2003 respectively. The increase in the paid-up capital is long overdue and is intended, of course, to match the dynamism of the economy and incentivize the shareholder commitment and enable institutions to withstand shocks and to converge with regional peers, among which Uganda will effectively be a member. And that's, of course, what's coming in from Bank of Baroda. We await, of course, anxiously to see if the shareholders will approve that rights issue of 15 million shares to raise over 150 million Ugandan shillings at Bank of Baroda. Moving on, we have a better day of trading. We had a better day of trading, generally speaking, on the Uganda Securities Exchange last Friday, last week of trading, and definitely there was a lot of better movement that we realized on the markets. And definitely we hope for better today. The markets are open. Remember, they open at 9 a.m. and close at exactly 1 p.m. East African Standard Time. Now, on aggregate, the volumes declined, however, by 79%, and the market capitalization contracted slightly to 19.5 trillion Ugandan shillings. At the moment, also, the all-share index is counting points as low as at least 1,090, and the local company index as well decreased by 0.81%, attributable to the loss of MTN Uganda on the Uganda Stock Exchange, down to at least 267.04 points. Moving on to Nairobi Stock Exchange, where there's been a lot of shocking news in the last few days about Safaricom's losses that are amounting to over 20% on the biggest and busiest exchange here in East Africa. Now, the USE witnessed at least 48 listings participate in trading on Tuesday, and these were ending a day with at least 17 gainers and 19 losers. Now, Total Kenya came out with the biggest gain, at least at a jump of 9.02%, up to a price of at least 19.95 Kenyan shillings per share. Nairobi Business Ventures followed suit with a 7.97% appreciation, as well as East African Cables with a 6.67% appreciation, and the Williamson T Kenya with a jump of at least 6.67%. On the losing side, Car and General came out at the bottom with a loss of at least 6.83%, down to 30.0 Kenyan shillings, and as well as Scan Group with a 6.35% drop, and Unga Group with a 5.33% loss. Capacitive Investments as well lost at least 4.37% of their trading price. Now, Safaricom came out with the biggest volume for the day, at least 37.1 million shares. And let's have a look at what happened to their pricing. Their pricing increased by 1 Kenyan shillings up to 18.95 Kenyan shillings. That was a 5.57% addition of value to the shareholder there. Now, the company's stock has been wobbling in the last few days, which have been very tough for Safaricom. Now, yesterday's volume of 37.1 million accrued a total turnover of at least 704 million Kenyan shillings, and the 40.1 billion shares continues to stay afloat on the biggest stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, Safaricom in the 1 week has lost 0.79%, and in the last 4 weeks at least 19.2%. That's currently what we are talking about when we talk about the losses at Safaricom. And when you look at the beginning, Safaricom had a price of 24.15, meaning in terms of year to date, they have lost over 21.5%, which is one of their biggest losses in a very long time. Now, the NSE performance also, as per the year to date and the monthly performance, is quite worrying for Safaricom, where they have lost at least 19% as well on the monthly percentage performance there from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And this could compound the worries of the shareholders. However, Safaricom continues to be the #1 most favorite stock in terms of trading and in the biggest volumes. And the company in the last 3 months has recorded over 576 million shares. And these are valued at close to 11.9 billion Kenyan shillings. What could be happening at Safaricom could happen to any big stock. And remember, in Nairobi, this is a stock that wipes away almost half of the market capitalization in Kenya. So anything that happens to Safaricom is really what's happening to the entire Nairobi, to half, okay, basically, practically and technically speaking, it's happening to half of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. However, Nairobi Stock Exchange is still resilient, and the Safaricom stock representation has gone down to 44% from 50% due to, of course, the drop in market capitalization. Of course, when your prices are falling off the sky, you definitely expect the market capitalization as well to come down. And currently also their representation of the market has quite gone down. But could Safaricom stay resilient? We'll watch the space in the next couple of days as we watch the earnings unfold as well here on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, just a few days ago, also the banks and financial institutions were able to unleash their earnings for 2022. Now, in financial year 2022, KCB, Kenya Commercial Bank, one of the biggest banks in Kenya and in East Africa, reported a net 89.78 billion Kenyan shillings net interest income, and this was up 11.5% on the year-on-year performance. And Cooperative Bank of Kenya registered at least 45.5 billion Kenyan shillings in the net interest income, a growth of over 10.9%. Now, Absa Bank went over and above the roof with at least 31.8% upwards edge on the net interest income last year, to at least a tune of 32 billion Kenyan shillings, while Standard Chartered's net interest income hit at least about 20 billion Kenyan shillings, actually hit about 22.2 billion Kenyan shillings, which was a growth of at least 18.1%. Stanbic Bank registered the highest growth net interest income, however, at 31.8% across the banks that have reported so far, to at least a tune of about 18.9 billion Kenyan shillings. That's Stanbic Bank for you. Now, getting to look into the dividend and the issuance, what could be happening to the dividends issuance this year. Now, KCB Group is the only actually bank that has cut its dividend to a return of at least 2 Kenyan shillings per share to every shareholder. And in 2021, they issued at least 3 Kenyan shillings. So they're going back to at least, they're drawing back at least to 2 Kenyan shillings. And here's what the Chief Finance Officer had to actually say. He said, and I quote, "We are paying a dividend. It is lower than that in 2022, but we are paying a dividend." So at least that's a good sign. In making decisions, we have to look at the holistic picture and have a long-term view in mind. We invested heavily in acquiring the TMB, or the Trust Microfinance Bank, towards the end of last year, and we could have commercialization of the acquisition is something we should do. We should be able to do in a year, a maximum of 15 months. There is some investment that needs to go there in a very short period of time, and shareholders will actually be seeing an improved dividend payment. That's according to Mr. Lawrence Kimathi, who is Kenya Commercial Bank's Group Chief Financial Officer. And as we wind down the markets, let's get to cross over to the US markets and have a look at what's currently happening in the midst of the turmoil of the banking sector collapse. Now, meanwhile, in the United States, stocks moved higher, especially earlier on Tuesday and in Tuesday afternoon trading. And this was following US and European efforts to stabilize the banking system. Now, interesting is the ripple effects of the banking sector crisis comes on the heels of Federal Reserve's next interest rate decision today. Yes, today Federal Reserve Bank will be sitting and they will be getting the new policy decision out by the end of today. Now, its policy meeting kicked off yesterday on Tuesday, and they will be announcing that outcome at the end of today. As the opening bell rang on Tuesday, the S&P 500 added at least 1%, while the futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained at least a 0.9%, and the contracts on the technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite edged up at least 1% for the day. Now, the bond yields are rising as well, and potentially indicating less of the recessionary impulse from the banking system. Now, that's according to the US market intelligence team at JP Morgan Chase. The yield on the 10-year Treasury bond in the United States rose to 3.5% from 3.46% on Tuesday morning. And on the front end of the yield curve, the 2-year yields jumped to over 4.1%. And that's it, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us. I want to remind you about Altex East Africa. Do you know you can buy bonds in East Africa by simply dialing *292# and following the prompts? You can be able to buy online on wherever you are at exactly 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and at least up to before or at exactly 15 minutes past 3 p.m. Now, OTEX is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, and they are here to tell you you can do something absolutely new with your money by investing in the treasury bonds in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for choosing Smart 24 TV over any other channel. A lot more business is coming your way today. It's a Wednesday. I wish you a very lovely day. See you tomorrow.
Smart 24, driving business.
Sky. Futimbuto, the taste of Uganda in a new international park.
Say goodbye to paperwork and travel costs. Now every MTN customer can register to invest in securities anytime and anywhere with Zabu in a few simple steps. Step 1. Dial *292#. Step 2. Select option 1